South Africa's investment case is going to come under the spotlight at the 5th Investment Conference underway in Sandton. It's going to be an interesting debate, especially because South Africa has an energy crisis as well as one in logistics. We are joined now by BLSA CEO Busisiwe Mavuso. Thank you so much for your time. It's going to be a tricky task for South Africa to give a convincing investment case given the challenges that we have. Where's the starting point?
Our investment case is definitely going to be put under the spotlight because we have major challenges that we actually have to answer for as a country. So we are currently having the investment conference under stage 6 rolling blackouts. It is reported that the financial impact of the energy crisis for the 2022 year has been 15 billion rands. The ports and logistics, as you rightfully put it, the Minerals Council will actually tell you that there's been a 50 billion loss of revenue in just the mining sector alone. So if you look at how the other factors, agriculture and all the others have actually been impacted, it's really a serious problem. Crime and corruption is also on the rise. South Africa has now been put on number 79 of the list of the most fragile states in the world. Now, this is number 79 out of 179 countries. We were number 85 in 2019, and the higher up the list you go means that things are not looking good for you as a country. Being a fragile state means that you have a weak government. It means that you are not in a position to provide service delivery. It means that there is a sharp economic decline in the country, and it means that the criminality and corruption is on the rise. But outside of those three, which are the major issues that we're expecting the president to address, and to address very candidly, because I don't think that people are looking for a sanitized version of where the country is. They really want to know our plans. They really want to know the interventions that we're going to put in place. They really want to know what are we going to do to make sure that our economy turns the corner. You know, the work visa issue is also a problem. A lot of these investors that we're trying to bring into the country have to face serious challenges at the Department of Home Affairs when they try and bring the experts into the country, where most of them have to wait for more than a year to get the work visas. But also one of the issues that I imagine when you talk to CEOs is that the concern in the global community around the political instability being on the rise in South Africa is another major concern. So we therefore have to give an answer, or rather provide, some view in terms of how are we going to manage that as a country. So it is indeed a very tricky time for us as a country. I think we're having this investment conference under the most challenging of circumstances. I don't even think that COVID presented us the challenges that we're currently facing now. Let's accept, that our economy, since the first investment conference, has actually been on the decline, and we are worse off now than what we have been, 5 years ago. And we have set ourselves a higher target of 2 trillion rands in the next 5 years. So let's see how we actually pull the rabbit out of the hole. Let's see if we are going to manage to convince, the international communities that South Africa does indeed have its house in order. Let's see if the president will make a believable business case for investment in this country, because you're honestly sitting in an environment where South Africa is losing investment to East Africa. US businesses in the main are actually choosing to put their investment in Kenya and Rwanda versus in South Africa. So what does convincing the international community and the investor community to come back into South Africa look like? Because we really need it. We're currently sitting with unemployment of 42% in terms of the expanded definition, and about 60%, in terms of the youth unemployment, poverty levels of more than 50%. So we therefore have to see meaningful intervention. But when you also look at what the World Economic Forum has said, they are saying South Africa is now on the 31 countries who are at the high risk for the erosion of social cohesion. So there is the issue of social instability that is on the rise. We saw what that looked like in July 2021. We don't want a recurrence of that in the country again. But the only way you actually prevent something like that from happening again is to grow the economy at the right levels. And you can only make a dent on unemployment when the economy is growing at about 3% and above. We are nowhere near those levels. So this investment conference is very important for us, therefore, from that perspective, because it is it is what stands between, the erosion of social cohesion that I'm talking about, the social instability, the intervention on the domestic inequality, and South Africa really turning the corner and changing its economic trajectory. So we have a big job to do as a country here today.
Absolutely, and on the social element point of view, it also speaks to the lived experience of ordinary South Africans under high unemployment, inequality and poverty lines that are simply unacceptable in this country, that are barriers to entry when it comes to economic participation. Investment versus how that feeds into, including the social element of creating jobs and having bodies in jobs. How do we then find a correlation there?
It is actually a direct correlation, because without investment you don't get jobs. Remember, how this works is that you have to have a conducive environment within which the businesses in the country can operate. And a conducive environment means the lights should be on. It means ports and logistics should be operating as it should. Because remember, we're saying as a country, we're trying to position ourselves as an export-led growth economy. So if we can't get our goods, to market, because it's countries that actually compete, it's supply chains that compete, not countries. So if we can't get our goods out of the country and to the market, it therefore means our environment is not a conducive one. Water is a looming crisis that we're actually going to have as a country. Crime and corruption, as I've already said. So the conducive and the environment within which business is operating in this country is not a conducive one. It therefore means, because we don't have a conducive environment, business confidence is at its lowest. And if business confidence is at its lowest, then we can forget about CEOs investing in the country. And if there is no investment, it means that our economy is not growing at the right levels. And if our economy is not growing at the right levels, we can't make a dent on unemployment. So therefore, there is a very direct link to getting investment into the country, because that will propel our investment, or rather our economy, to grow at the right levels. And it is only in that manner that we can therefore, make a serious dent on the jobs. So a lot is riding on this for us, as a country. And we are depending on foreign direct investment. We don't have enough domestic investment for us to can actually solve this on our own. We therefore have to prove to the international community, that we do have our house in order, that we do have, interventions that are actually practical and plausible to change our economic trajectory around, that we need to essentially be rolling out the red carpet for them, to convince them, why should they invest in South Africa and not in the other, countries in the continent. Because remember, the interest in South Africa is in as so far as it can give investors the gateway to the African continent. The real interest is in the 1.4 billion people that are in the continent, not the 65 million people that are in South Africa. So we are only being used as a gateway, as a conduit. So if the gateway, if our environment is therefore not conducive, then they go somewhere else, because they can still be able to access the African continent from Kenya, from Rwanda, from Namibia, from Nigeria. Yes, they are less advanced economies and they are less industrialized. But if those governments are rolling out the red carpet, and if they are putting a very strong investment case than what South Africa is able to do, then investment will definitely go there. Because remember, capital is like water. It will always follow the path of least resistance.
A convincing case is what is sought from South Africa as the country reaches the 5th investment conference. The target set in terms of pledges, 2 trillion rand. Tumisang Ndlovu for Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405 in Sandton.